How you doing, everybody? Happy day or weekend after Thanksgiving. I hope you had a wonderful time with your friends and family. And I'll be dashing out here pretty soon, so I'm going to keep things nice and short. Try not to go any longer than 20 minutes. But what this is the end cap of a 4-week video series that I intended to do. We got through the first couple, no problem, but then I lost my voice, and so I couldn't do it that week. And then the following week, I had an interruption in the streaming service in which I needed to shut off the one camera, and then I tried to use this camera to do that, and I was trying to video myself, control all my graphics, and that didn't work out too well. So here I am redoing things the Friday afternoon after Thanksgiving, and I'm going to dash out here to my brother's just about a mile down the street here in a little bit and have some more turkey, which is very good for your immune system. Well, we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about your physical shell. This body that we have to motor around in for the next several years of our life, and we got to take care of it. There are limitations, right? You can get better. I firmly believe that you can get healthier next week. You can be healthier next year than you are right now, and it doesn't matter how old you are. So the first couple of live streams in this series, we talked about a lot of mental and emotional health stuff. And we talked about how that relates to certain parts of the brain that are stimulated when you get adjusted here. Well, there's a couple of other parts known as the vestibular nucleus, which controls our posture and mobility, as well as the hypothalamus, which is really the neuroendocrine or the hormonal or the biochemical, the transport system of the long-term health of your body as it relates to this brain-to-body connection, which of course we work on here. So we've talked about unleashing your inborn intelligence. We're bridging to your educated intelligence, and over the top of that, we're going to overlay some artificial intelligence and give a little introduction to algorithms, and you'll see how that has an exponential effect or impact on getting you to that next level. We always want you to have breakthroughs. No matter how old you are, you're still here, you have a purpose, and there's always a better way to express yourself more fully, and of course that starts with a better expressed, free of nerve interference, central nerve system. So, the first thing that we want to be aware of when it comes to posture and mobility is, when we think of that, we think of exercising, right? And so before you roll out on any exercise program, you really want to consider the costs, right? The costs of your time, mainly, because how frustrating is it when you mean well and you want to roll out on a new exercise program, but then life gets in the way and maybe you don't follow through and you feel bad that you didn't follow through because you made the commitment in the first place. And I always find it helpful to, in order to create the internal leverage, to just list out a bunch of reasons that could be beneficial. Yeah, maybe want to lose a few pounds. Yeah, maybe want to replace that weight, that excess weight, with muscle mass. Well, how am I going to measure that? Is there something I want to do on the bench press? Is there something I want to do on the squat? Is there a certain threshold of cardiovascular exercise that I want to get every day or a few times a week? So why do I want to do this? Why do I want to get to that level? Is it just to impress others with our physique? Well, that's kind of superficial. It should be, I want to do this so that ... what? What is it for you? Maybe it's a certain goal that you have to do this next summer. Maybe it's a certain way that you want to feel at the beginning of the year. You know, as we go more and more deeper into the holiday season, it's easy to get off track. But if we can make a firm commitment even now and get through this more difficult time of extra sweets and extra food and so forth, then we can be that much more empowered once 2023 actually does roll around. So the motivation is important. Now, the best way to get a well-rounded workout in as little time as possible is to get your cardio, is to get your strength training, as well as fine motor movements, all done at the same time. All done at the same time. Now, one of the best exercises, in my opinion, is kettlebell, a kettlebell swing. So I'm going to take my iPad here. You can see me on there, I'm sure. But kettlebell swing is you grab a kettlebell and you grab it by the handle. This is my friend Jamie, in my former chiropractor in Encinitas. And he actually made this thing called a better bell. So he's figured out a way to take a kettlebell and hollow it out and counterbalance it so that you can do arm curls with it. You can do a modified dip with it. Of course, you can do military press with it, plus all the other things that you can get out of a kettlebell. But if you only have a couple of minutes, by far the best exercise that you can get that covers all three of those bases, cardio, fine motor movements, and strength training, is a kettlebell swing. So it looks something like this. You pick up the kettlebell, it's a little bit in front of you. It's a little bit in front of you like this. Again, I'm just using my iPad here. But you pick it up, and then you swing it. You pop it up like this. Your arms come up to level with the floor, up like this. You can even do that for a minute. You can get maybe 60 of them in, 1 per second in a minute. And I know that sounds kind of like you're irking out a workout, but you know how it is sometimes, and you don't have much time. But you can get that crossed off your to-do list. Invite Mr. Mo, the momentum builders. Like, kids need, mommy, look at me. I'm going to go into the deep end. Mommy, I'm going to take off my floaties now. We as adults need that too, to feel that sense of momentum so that we never miss a day, or you never miss one of your 3 days if you choose to work out that often during the week. So the kettlebell swing, we love it. And to learn more about A Better Bell, visit abetterbell.com, and it's a wonderful product. The other thing is, we should address the thing that most of us have to deal with in this day and age, and that's sitting at a desk for hours at a time. There's something called upper and lower cross syndrome, which are predictable postures like this. Tension in the neck and shoulders, probably a weakening of the lower abs and the lower back. And so when we address these weaker areas in our workouts, it's going to give us the most bang for our buck. And we have on our website, if you go to PriorLakeSpinalCare.com/chiropractic-exercises, we got a huge list of print, JPEGs, as well as videos on showing you how to use a foam roll so you can do your own myofascial release. It's not just addressing the muscles. Like, I can stretch my hamstring if I bend over with my leg like that, or I can stretch out my lats a little bit like this. But what the foam roll does is it's a leverage device so that you can also access the connective tissues, the sort of laminate or plasticky Ziploc baggy substance that houses the rubber band muscle. Blood doesn't flow as well to those connective tissues as it does to the muscle, so it's a more difficult area to access. But with these different deformities and things that we face from sitting at a desk all day, it's great to use that leverage device and focus on your breathing at the same time. Maybe listen to some relaxing music or affirmative or meditative type of material anyways. That way you can cross-train and do stuff good for your brain at the same time. And even that, whether it's stretching or using a foam roller, those things are considered cardiovascular as well. Anything that stimulates blood flow is good for your cardiovascular system. I'll give you a brief little introduction. I'm working with a guy in Fridley. Hopefully he can give me a good price on these. But right before COVID, I had this foam cushion support package that people in San Diego love. I think I sold 28 of them in the first month of February, but then COVID happened, and you know what happened then. And I couldn't figure out quite how to sell them online. But the feedback from people down there was it was great. So we took our the most common exercises that I might recommend for a person, and we allowed them to get out of gravity, so to speak, so they didn't have to use their willpower as much to hold the various stretches, and therefore they could do it for a longer period of time and focus on their breathing, stimulating the blood flow to these fascia areas, which are all throughout your entire body, in order to get the best effect. And there's cushion supports for sitting down on and sitting back against, being in what I would call the rocket man position, as my old staff person on her back there in the upper right, and the free fallen position on the bottom left. And we also had a London guard. We have the scold, that's what we call the posture, the sitting apparatus. And what was the other one? I think I've covered them all four. The London guard, which is to help our posture when we're like this, to prevent that. And that's always best done while we're doing a kind of like a downward dog stretch for this one in the bottom left corner. As you can tell, it's a really good product. Hopefully the guy in Fridley will get me a good deal on these. The reason I had to stop is because the cost of foam manufacturing without going overseas for inflatables was cost prohibitive to extend the savings on to patients and to make it worthwhile for the storage and all that stuff. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I can get you more information on that. Remember now, if you want to be into great, you got to integrate. Occam's razor, the most simple, least falsifiable explanation for challenges that we face in life, is the most effective way of solving multiple effects. Putting our eggs into one basket if we can and when we can, such as the work that we do here. And we're talking about efficient exercise, especially with the kettlebell. But now I want to talk about something that was also innovated by a gentleman in Southern California. His name's Paul Chek, and he's very well known internationally for his cutting edge exercise programs that he would put his clients on. And he's broken things down to the ridiculous, and that's why I love him. So he has this thing called the 7 primal pattern movements. Working out, you're looking at yourself in the gym, and yeah, you can see these muscles in the front, but you can't see those, so are you exercising those? Are you skipping leg day, right? He wants to make sure that you're not doing that, and I want to make sure that you're not doing that. And so these particular movements, gait, right? So up in the top picture here, to walk, to jog, and to sprint, to be able to bend, to be able to push, to be able to pull, to be able to lunge, to twist, as well as bend over. If you couldn't do those things and you're in a hunter-gatherer society 500 years ago, you might not live beyond 30 years old. You might starve. If you broke your leg, you might starve because you couldn't run to get your food. And so these things are so important that we address our core, our lower back. Every movement that you make is initiated from the core. And it just so happens, by the way, and the reason that I check the hips right away after the adjustment and make sure the leg has come down is because the sidemost part of the brainstem, your brainstem is about as thick as the tip of your pinky, the sidemost part of the brainstem controls the tone of the muscles that anchor into or from your low back into your pelvis. So those primal pattern movements are something that we should be addressing during our exercise. I now want to transition into the artificial intelligence or the algorithms that I've been referring to a lot. And this is just an introduction. There's a lot of other things, but basically these are implementation intentions. We intend to do something, but sometimes we don't do it because we haven't thought it through all the way. We haven't troubleshot it. Nikola Tesla, not the guy who invented the Tesla car, but the inventor who was probably smarter than even Thomas Edison, he had a very low error per product that he had invented because he thought things through in every single detail. And so implementation intentions are a way to picture or visualize your to-do list from your roles and your goals that you have in life. It's not just, oh, gee, I want that thing. It's who are you, what are you, where are you going? Prioritize those things first. Then our to-do list is a lot easier. But even with that, if we can write it out on paper, I've used this example before, but if I said Batman, you're not thinking of the guy with horns and a cape or the bat's signal. You're not thinking of Batman. You're thinking of those pictures. You're thinking of those visual images, right? And so where algorithms come into play is you can realize that just like artificial intelligence, you can copy and paste, you can delete, you can file it away, you can share it with others, you can archive them, and we try to stay unemotional about these things because a computer can learn and it doesn't like pout or get frustrated, right? So we want to have the mindset of win or learn. Win, great. You're going to want to keep on doing that because it feels natural. Use your willpower, yes, but it becomes a habit within 21 days, right? So then you don't have to think, you don't have to be conscious necessarily about this certain habit that you're trying to implement. Now you can think, you can free up your mind for other things. I want to give you an example of that. A disciple, if you will, of this Paul Chek guy who came up with the 7 primal pattern movements, had a guy named Todd Durkin that studied under him. And LaDainian Tomlinson, a famous football player that played for the San Diego Chargers for many years, in fact, at his Hall of Fame speech, he gave a shout out to his trainer that was in the audience. And I want to use this example because football is great if only for the metaphors, right? We got a 1st and 10. We got a long way to go. We got to get the ball downfield. All these different carryovers, the Vince Lombardi quotes, and it's part of our culture. But this picture down on the bottom is a former patient, George Cordova. He says he doesn't care if I use his name, but he used to play for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he said that LaDainian Tomlinson was the most difficult person to tackle, and that his friends agreed with him on that. One time I stood behind LaDainian Tomlinson at the Subway, the sandwich place right by my old clinic in San Diego. I was right behind him, and the guy's calves are huge. And I remember he got 2 foot-long double meat protein sandwiches. And that's right around the time that he got either released or traded to the New York Jets, and he had a good year there as well. But the point that I bring this up is Todd Durkin had a very unusual training regimen that he would put LaDainian through. And you can see here in this upper right picture, LT, as they call him, is standing on an unsteady surface, striking a pose, holding the football out like this on one leg. And the next picture, he's posing in that until he would fatigue probably after a couple of minutes in that position. And then the other one, he's doing a military press up above. Not a ton of weight, but he's going for perfect form. And why is he doing all these things? Because in this upper left picture, you can see he has already shed the tackle of the linebacker, and now he's focused, sports metaphor, downfield on the next guy that he's going to try to deke out, or on the play downfield, right? And so I love that example because that's why algorithms are important. What did you do when you woke up this morning? Think about it for a second. Well, you probably went to the bathroom right away, right? So you think, well, that's kind of a silly example, but that's an algorithm. Think about the amount of willpower, patience, endurance, expense that it took for somebody to install, for you to download, and then consciously with your own willpower to install so that you don't even have to think about that anymore. So there's a very real conscious algorithm at some point, but but now it's so second nature that you can do that job first thing in the morning while thinking about something else. So what we want to do is we want to take the mundane and figure, is there any way that I can make this better? Is there any way I can combine these tasks to free up my conscious mind for things that are more important? Maybe it's the next interaction. Maybe it's to be a little bit better prepared so that you can have a good meal with your family where everybody's sitting down at the same time. Maybe it's like at our household is, we intend to do this, like implementation intention. If we didn't intend for this and have a specific goal for it, we'd probably even be more off course than this. But for some reason, it's difficult to get everybody's teeth brushed and ready for bed by 9 o'clock. Typically, we're good to go by like 9:15, 9:20. But I know that if we were a little bit more, organized and prepared, and we had that hard end time of 9 o'clock, then we would have a better bedtime routine. And we know that when we sleep better, that implies a lot of other good things for the next day. So that's an algorithm. A lot of cultures in the world, as you know, see the next day is actually starting tonight. So that's really important. Well, that's just a brief introduction to this algorithm concept, and we'll have more written material on this in the future, and maybe some other live classes, maybe some other videos on it. But I just wanted to give you an introduction so you can see the potential in layering on top of what you can learn consciously with your educated, and the benefits of your care here by unleashing that inborn, which, by the way, your innate or your inborn intelligence is way smarter than your educated intelligence. Your DNA, if we took it out, the average adult DNA, their information, their blueprint, their book of life would stretch to the sun and back 4 times, right? And so artificial intelligence is patterned off of innate intelligence, right? There's a lot of similarities in nature, whether it's an oak tree above the surface or below the surface with the branch and the root system, or a nerve cell, which looks a lot like an oak tree above and below the surface, or a sports tournament bracket, or a USB connection device, as we've been talking about so many times, right? All these things can come together as one, and that's what puts you on higher ground. Well, I will see you at your next appointment, and I will look forward to your next breakthrough. Thanks for being here with me on this bookend to our 4-part live stream video series on creating more ROI in your life, resilience, optimism, and integration. Take care and have a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend.